To the deportation, Muslims have been forced to leave their homes, places they've been living for years. There are many very heartbreaking stories of Muslims being separated from their families. Imagine trying to go home to your sick family member and not being able to. A 6-year-old Syrian living in Saudi Arabia tried to visit her mother, who was recovering from breast cancer surgery, only to be detained for nearly 5 hours at the airport and eventually forced to get back on a plane to Saudi Arabia, even though she had a signed note from her mother's surgeon that she was needed to assist in the care of her 76-year-old mother. This is not the only case of this happening. Families have been torn apart by this awful ban and sent to places they wish they had never returned to.
Many people imagine America to be the go-to for immigration due to religious freedom and freedom of speech. Many terrorist groups, including ISIS, have attacked the major cities in Syria and the neighboring country Raqqa. It is inhabitable anymore due to the attacks and damage to the land, and it makes it very hard for the families to live there, and they are forced out of the country.
Discrimination against Muslims starts with the government creating bans or laws, and then eventually it trickles down to American citizens all throughout the country. So President Donald Trump retweeted a couple weeks ago a video of Muslim migrants beating up a Dutch boy on crutches, and this is an example of the government creating an idea of Muslims, because he is promoting the idea that Muslims are all harmful towards people. Next, some governors have refused to accept Syrian refugees into their state borders, and the House of Representatives passed a bill designed to stop the resettlement of refugees into the United States. Now, as I said before, it kind of all trickles down to the citizens of the United States having an Islamophobic idea put into their head, and because of this, they are creating hate crimes against Muslims all throughout the country by destroying places of worship, beating them up, and in some cases even murdering them. So for example, there was a mosque in Texas that had been burned down by a group of anti-Muslim bigots, and they did this because they were so Islamophobic, and they were under the belief that all Muslims are horrible people.
President Donald Trump reignited the debate over his travel ban following the recent attack of London that killed at least 7 people and wounded dozens more. Trump renewed his call for the courts to approve the executive order, which primarily bans nationals from 6 prominent Muslim countries from entering the United States. His first order of business is that we need to be smart, vigilant, and tough. We need the courts to give us back our rights, and we need to make the travel ban an extra level of safety. Former Secretary of State John Kennedy also emphasizes London's Prime Minister's statement by saying that to prevent these kinds of attacks, we should finally ban all Islamics coming into the country, which would finally put an end to the worry. Some may say, how many people have to die before we stop letting in these refugees into America?
So we are here to discuss whether or not Muslims should be banned and deported from America.
We can all agree that immigration in all ways is an issue in America. There's lots of tension surrounding it within the country. Right now, there's a president in term who is trying to fix this issue in America, more specifically Muslim refugees. President Donald Trump is trying to fix this problem by enacting a Muslim ban and deporting Muslim Americans. Some could argue that this is beneficial and is helping the issue, but there is immense evidence to prove that it is greatly hurting the nation, with many economic, civil, political, and religious implications.
For the deportation process, DHS sends out a notice to appear to an individual, and they claim that you have broken a law or overstayed your visa. If this happens, you must attend court, and they will tell you what you did wrong, and then the judge will determine whether you should be sent back to your country or not. Donald Trump's plan to mass deport Muslims back to their home country was banned by a judge because the judge believed that they did not fit the status of the criteria of deporting someone. However, there are still certain individuals that are living in America who are being sent back to their country for unknown reasons.
Our country was founded on the separation of church and state and freedom of religion, and this Muslim ban goes against the belief that the country was built on. The Muslim ban that Trump has enacted is called Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States. This title reveals how Trump is conventionalizing all Muslims and people from the Middle East by naming the ban Protecting It from Terrorists. Imagine having a majority of a country look upon your people as terrorists and have them afraid of entering the country. This ban restricts people from 7 Muslim-majority countries from entering the United States, such as Libya, Sudan, Yemen, Syria, and some other countries. And in order to stay in the country, they need a bona fide connection to stay, which is a personal connection with a family member. A family member such as a parent or a child. And then lastly, it caps the refugee quota to 50,000 people and suspends the U.S. refugee program for 90 days. Many supporters of Trump and the ban believe that this will decrease the number of terrorists entering the United States and in the end making the nation safer. People such as Susan Richardson states that she supports the travel ban because she believes that a country has absolute right to protect its border from dangerous people. Robert Need also agrees with the Muslim ban because he believes that people coming from different countries and people who have come here illegally do not have the right to come here whatsoever.
Graphs have proven to contradict that all Muslims are terrorists. This graph behind me depicts the number of terrorism attacks and where the person who engaged it was from. As one can easily tell, the number of refugee seekers and illegal immigrants who have committed a terrorism attack is much lower than the number of naturalized citizens or U.S. foreign citizens who have engaged in over 120 attacks. Refugee seekers and illegal immigrants only account for about 20 attacks.
In stand against the ban, there have been multiple protests in airports and including the White House. Immediately after the ban was passed, crowds of hundreds of people rushed to airports all over the country and stood up for the people affected. As you can see in this picture and the next picture here, this illustrates the type of popular sentiment in support of Muslims and immigrants in general.
In supporting this ban, one is directly affecting thousands of refugees who have escaped to America in hope of a better life and safer life and their families, which is further intensifying the belief that all Muslims are dangerous. In the words of college student Raya Bidshahari, she states that, above all, it is heartbreaking. My family and I have always dreamed of coming to the United States and accomplishing our dreams here. And now we are treated as though we are terrorists. This is showing that she and her family came here in hopes of a better life, but now she's being treated dangerously and as though her and her family are terrorists.
So Muhammad Mustafa from Syria moved to the U.S. with his wife, who had been visiting her family back in Qatar. She arrived back at the airport early Saturday morning, but Trump's executive order was signed while she was in the air. Because she had a Syrian passport, she was sent back several hours later, he said. Mustafa is devastated, but he said the crowds at the airport chanting "Refugees are welcome here" have given him hope. So not only are there social implications because of the Muslim ban, but there are geopolitical implications as well. So financial markets are recently reacting negatively to the Trump ban. So the value of the dollar relative to other currencies have also declined. This also prevents top technologists and other professionals from entering and staying in the U.S. A number of Silicon Valley leaders blasted the Trump order this weekend, saying that it was hurting their ability to move and retain top talent. And now they can only go to Canada or China or Europe, which is always trying to recruit top intellects. So now that we have this ban, there's less freedom, encouraging less and less creative people from coming into America.
The recent attack on London has brought back horrific memories of 9/11. Ever since the attack in 2001, people have put a bad outlook on the whole population of Muslims, which has led to a negative stereotype of them. However, the U.S. has admitted more than 800,000 refugees of the Muslim culture since 9/11. And after that, only 3 of them have been arrested on account of terrorism charges. Therefore, there is no real evidence to suggest that banning Muslims or banning Muslims from those 6 particular set of countries would make ourselves here in the United States any safer.
Not only has this Muslim ban affected dozens of aspects of American politics and economics, it has greatly affected the foreign relationships we have with other nations. For example, Iraq officials believe that the ban will turn public sentiment in their country against the United States, which is overall not a good thing. A Nebraska senator states that the terrorist group recruiters will use the Muslim ban as an example to tell Muslim children that America has negative views of Muslims, and therefore that will increase the tensions between the 2 countries. This proves that the ban will have significant implications over our national affairs.
The only way to truly fix the Muslim problem is to get rid of the Muslim ban. We should not ban or deport Muslims from America. As a nation, we need to stop holding these religious and radical stereotypes that are held against Muslims. Having this ban enacted only adds to the tension around Muslims and their religious practices.
We must stand with those who are being hurt by this ban and who are being discriminated against in general. We must stand up for those who stood by Dalia Mogahid and her peers who went to pray in their mosque the Friday after 9/11, even though she was told not to go because it made her family and her friends a threat. When they arrived to the mosque, they found half of the congregation to be different religions, such as Catholic and Protestant, and they were all standing up for the solidarity of the Muslim community.
And although we may not need to go and stand with them on their holy day, we as a nation must take this and use it as a symbol to show that we stand with Islam and we stand against bigotry and Islamophobia. Having a president who promotes racial and religious stereotypes is only adding to the negative views that some American citizens have of Muslims.
The Americans who are speaking out against this are giving so much needed hope to illegal immigrants and Muslim refugees who've parted from family or are living in fear of deportation. Because we have such an outwardly racist president who has generalized all Muslims as terrorists, we need to start speaking out for what we believe in and speaking for those who don't have a voice.